All right, guys. So today I'm going to talk about a very touchy subject, to say the least. And I'm really nervous to talk about it because people that talk about stuff like this are usually labeled as nutty. And that's not me, guys. I'm not in that category. And, one thing I've said before on my channel, I'm going to say it again, is that I am inherently distrustful of the government. I don't trust them with anything, right? You have to double, triple, quadruple check the government on things, before you can come to a solid conclusion in terms of, what's actually going on. But this subject in particular, I think that we should probably start taking a lot more seriously because there's obviously something that the government is trying to tell us. So Tucker Carlson, who's been covering this a lot, did a segment on Friday night. It was only 5 minutes that really blew my mind. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a liberal's worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at gforemanbcp. Let's get it. All right, guys, take a look at this segment that Tucker Carlson did Friday night. I was just watching TV, Tuck, and it just came across, and I thought it was fascinating.
We used to be defensive on this topic, but there's no reason to be. There is now an enormous amount of evidence, including physical evidence, that UFOs, whatever they are real. Why don't we know a lot more about this? Because the government has hidden that information from us, outrageously. But now some of that information has come into public view thanks to a new documentary called The Phenomenon. We learned the feds are hiding more than we thought they were.
All we're saying, nobody has to agree that why it's there, but shouldn't we at least be spending some money to study all these phenomenon? Shouldn't we study this stuff? The answer is yes, and that's all this was about, and why the federal government all these years has covered up, put brake pads on everything, stopped it. I think it's very, very bad for our country.
Are you saying that there's some evidence that still hasn't seen the light of day?
I'm saying most of it hasn't seen the light of day.
It's outrageous. And it's not a partisan question, by the way. That, of course, was former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada, a Democrat if there ever was one. But that's not even the biggest claim he makes. According to the film, Reid said that UFOs have actually and repeatedly interfered with our nuclear weapons capabilities. So where are these UFOs from? Some researchers told the filmmakers that their origins are becoming clearer.
Dr. Jacques Vallée has collected purported metal debris from UFO cases dating as far back as 1947 that experts are analyzing in a state-of-the-art laboratory. He was astonished to find their composition was unlike any known metal.
This material was manufactured. It's not natural. It's not natural to the materials that we have around us in the lab or on the Earth.
Yeah, physical evidence of extraterrestrial spaceships visiting Earth, not a big deal. It's nothing compared to like the fly on Mike Pence's forehead. If this wasn't an election year, we'd be doing a full hour on this, maybe a full week. It's that important. Unfortunately, we just have a few minutes with James Fox. He's the director and producer of The Phenomenon, now available on streaming services, and Christopher Mellon, a former senior intelligence official from the Department of Defense. They join us tonight. Mr. Fox, first to you, thank you both for coming on and for making this film. I just want to ask you in turn about these two strains from the documentary. The first, to you, James Fox, is the question of the nuclear weapons facilities. How often do we think UFOs have visited and why?
Well, that was one of the big bombshells that Harry Reid dropped during production of the film. It really kind of caught me off guard because it's the first time, a government official of his magnitude, of his level, had revealed that these UFOs were not only seen over, super secret nuclear weapons facilities, but they were interacting, shutting on and off some of the missiles. He went as far as even saying that if the president had called upon to launch the missiles in several occasions, they couldn't have done it. The missiles were deactivated. And this has also been happening in Russia. And we document those cases very thoroughly with high-level military officials testifying about these incidents.
It's beyond. Mr. Mellon, quickly to you, physical evidence of UFOs, metal from the craft, where?
Well, this is, my congratulations to James. This is the most informative and engaging documentary, and important documentary on this subject, because it's no longer a theoretical issue, as you've observed. This is now, the Defense Department has confirmed this is happening. Congress is asking questions. They're asking for a report. So this information, people need to get an understanding and a context with which to sort of process and absorb this. In terms of the materials, there are private researchers, Jacques, perhaps foremost among them, also to the STARS Academy, that have materials and are funding research. Jacques is a meticulous scientist, so he's sending it to peer review in multiple labs. But the gist of it is that those materials were engineered at an atomic level. It's a capability that we don't even possess. If they can prove that and demonstrate that, that'll raise a lot of interesting questions.
It's, yeah, you think?
If that doesn't make your skin crawl, I don't know what will. I actually went and watched the documentary, The Phenomenon. I highly recommend it. And the thing that blew my mind is when you have a senator like Harry Reid. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, some random kook or some shady dude in the shadows, you know, some of these other crackpots that be on UFO documentaries. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about government officials, top level government officials, like Harry Reid, coming out and making statements that these objects have been interfering with our nuclear weapons capabilities. Okay? There was a part of the documentary where it went in detail about one of these objects flying over a nuclear facility. And again, this is all corroborated by top level government officials who were there. Shutting off our nuclear missiles. So even if the president wanted to launch a missile, he could not do it. They shut it off. And further details about that story go into how this object was basically like examining and taking data from our nuclear test facilities. And that type of information just blows my mind. And there's another story about how they actually turned on a launch sequence for our nuclear missiles. I mean, and they had to manually shut it off. That, you know, if that type of information being revealed to the public coming from the government, I mean, we're not talking about a crackpot, we're talking about the government. That's something that we should stop and really think about. And like Tuck said, this should be a story that is a week-long story. This should not be something that deserves a 5-minute segment. The things that are said in this documentary, which by the way, is the most legitimate UFO documentary I've ever watched. The things that are said and the stories that are talked about are the most legitimate UFO stories that we have. And every witness, almost, again, 90% of the witnesses are all top level military officials and government officials talking about this. This is not random ass people that you find, you know, on the internet trying to, you know, come up with their own. No, that's not what this is. And it is very high quality, very high quality. And I mean, the evidence that they present is so convincing that it just boggles my mind that a story like that, just that one aspect, that one story, did not supersede everything that's going on right now politically. And I just find it funny how we're at that point in society where the government can come out and be like, hey guys, I think we're being visited. I think that we have these objects in the sky that are not ours, that we don't know how to manufacture. We have no capabilities of manufacturing. Also, by the way, we've recovered things. We have materials from these objects. We are testing them in a lab. And it looks like this is stuff that we cannot make. We don't even have close to the capabilities of making. How do we find this? How is this possible? The fact is that the American people and American public have ignored this information because of how politically divided we are. It's just insane to think about. I mean, I remember when the Navy first released their videos last year or year before last, and it got a little bit of press, but after a day it was done because the news went back to focusing on whatever President Trump was doing. I don't want to make this video too long. What I'm gonna say is this should get more attention. This is why I'm talking about it. I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it because this is my channel. I feel like I'm obligated to talk about things I feel like people should know and everybody should pay attention to something, like at least dedicate some time to watch this documentary because it's totally worth it. But my conclusion is this from watching documentary. I don't know ultimately what the government's goal is with revealing this information in this time, but it appears to me that there is a level of government, or there's some internal conflict with the government in which there's a part of the government, let's say, you know, Harry Reid, you know, the people that have come out that want this information to come out, who probably know more than what they're saying, who definitely know more than what they're saying. They want the information to come out, and then there's part of the government that doesn't want the information to come out. And I think they're currently fighting between each other in terms of how to handle this information and what to do with it. And I think this documentary outlines that, and that's my takeaway from it, is that there's certain people in the government that are trying to reveal information that they feel the American people needs to know, and there's, you know, people in the government that are also continuing to try to suppress this information. So everybody should be paying attention. And I highly recommend this documentary. Again, the only reason I thought about it or even went and looked it up is because I saw this segment on Tucker Carlson. It blew me away so much. I was like, all right, I need to go watch this. And when I watched, I was like, I need to share this with my audience. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.